Hi, I'm Jenifer, and I've got my psalteries here and my easel, and I'd like to share with you some stories and songs about change, about how it feels when things change and people change, and even feelings change, and you go from glad to mad to sad and back to glad again. So join me and sing along. Maybe hear my stories and they'll be like your stories. You know, we go through change every moment of every day. It can be in something as simple as receiving a phone call from a friend. And you know how that goes. Sort of like, ring, 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 ring. Hello? Yes. Oh no. Well, gee, maybe. Wow. Okay. Well, goodbye. See what I mean? In one short phone call from a friend, you can go through several changes of feeling. Well, let's take friendship, for example. First, there's one. This one's you. Here's your friend. He makes two of you. You are so both and oneful. You laugh and are so funful. When you're in a jam, he says, here I am. And when you're lonely and blue, he says, gee, you know what? Me too. And when you lose the way, he says, gee whiz, that's okay. And you know, that's just friendship. Maybe you have a friend like that. If you're ever in a jam, here I am. If you're ever in a mess, SOS. If you ever get so happy you land in jail, I'm your bail. It's friendship, friendship, just a perfect blendship. When other friendships have been forgot, ours will still be hot. Loddle, 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 chuck, chuck, chuck. And whatever you do, it's always you two, side by side. Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. Don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel the road, sharing our load, side by side. But you know what? Friendships are not always so happy. Things change. Things change like, well, I'm going to change some of these psaltery strings as we go. People change, things change. Say you might have a fight with your friend. That would be a big change, wouldn't it? Or say your friend's dad changes jobs. And that means that the whole family, including your best friend, move away. That would be a big change, wouldn't it? Or say your parents are getting a divorce and you hear that your dad is moving to a different place and it feels like you're just losing your best friend. Change can sometimes be very disappointing, really make you feel bad. It's kind of like your world just turns to worms. You know what I mean? Actually, it's a little bit like the day that happened to me that was so disappointing. It was a day when I had some things in mind that I wanted to have happen, and it didn't go my way. And at first, I was really angry about it. And then finally, I was just flat let down, you might say. And the worst part of it all was that there was nothing that I could do about any of it. I don't know if you've ever had a day like that. For me, if you can imagine, it was such a down day. It was even raining on me. And that was just the way it was. If you've ever had a day like that, you know how I felt. It was a pretty down feeling. For me, it was the day that the circus left town. I waved to the man with the golden baton, and I waved through the rain pouring down. And I waved till the last of the music was gone, the day that the circus left town. You're supposed not to mind when your dreams are dismissed with a frown. But my heart almost broke when they left me behind, the day that the circus left town. I asked for a job doing anything, feed the elephants, carry water, anything. But the man said he didn't have anything, and turned me away, and away went the lions and the tigers so wild, and away went the last funny clowns, and away went my very last day as a child, the day that the circus left town. So it seems that growing up is somehow learning to say, yes, goodbye. Seems you have to say goodbye at some times and hello at other times. That's change for you. Actually, the word goodbye has gone through some changes in its day. It didn't always look like goodbye the way we see it today. It used to be like this. It came from the English, and they said, God be with you. They dropped the TH, and they said it so much, and they said it so fast that it shortened, and it came like, God be with you, 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 goodbye. But it meant that when you part from somebody, God is with you. Now that's change. Maybe something like this has happened to you. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Remember when your little brother was in first grade and he was so proud and you saw him playing on the school ground with his friends and he called out to you. He said, hey, Bubba, we're playing London Bridge, come play. And you called back, nah, and muttered to yourself, that's kid stuff, even though it used to be fun. And then you hollered back a little white lie. You said, I've got some important work to do. You know. Well, some things that you used to be interested in, you're just not interested in anymore. Or maybe for you it was like the time that, say your little 5-year-old sister came into your room one Saturday morning, and she is carrying her favorite toy with her as she comes in there. It used to be a white rabbit, but now it's kind of a dingy gray thing that she still loves. You know, it's been hugged and carried around till it's lost all of its fresh whiteness. And she comes into your room and she pushes this white bunny up into your sleeping face and she says, "Let's play the hide the bunny game." And you say, "Leave me alone, will you?" Even though you know you didn't really want to be left alone. But sometimes your feelings can just change so fast that you're not the person you used to be. You know, you begin to wonder what's right. It's kind of confusing. Actually, none of us are the persons that we used to be, because as we grow, we change. You know, the folks around you notice the difference. Mothers and fathers don't always show it, but they are usually astounded when their children start to grow up and change. But inside, they may be feeling something like this. Is this the little girl I carried? Is this the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they? When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday when they were small? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the days. Seedlings turn overnight to sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years. One season following another, laden with happiness and tears. So we find ourselves kind of hanging out in the universe. You know, the universe. It's that space with the constantly changing people and things in it. And you know, if everything is changing all the time, how can anyone be sure of anything? How can you be sure of your friends or your family? And how can any of us be sure that we'll get to do and be all the things we want to do and be? Well, a long time ago, there was a man who said some very wise words. And we remembered those words. In fact, they're very old. A new man, a modern folk singer, Pete Seeger, wrote some new words with the help of his wife and a child. And we have this song. Sing it with me if you know it. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time for work, a time for play, a time for night, a time for day, a time to sleep, a time to wake, a time for candles on the cake. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to dress, a time to eat, a time to sit and rest your feet, a time to teach, a time to learn, a time for all to take their turn. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. Well, you know, if there's a time for goodbye, there's got to be a time for hello, right? And we've only been saying this word to each other for about 100 years. It also came from another English word. It started about 1880 that we used hello, but the first word was hollow. And that meant a shout or an exclamation. It meant to stop and pay attention. Like if you came upon something unusual, you might say, hello, what's this? Now, I did come upon something unusual one day, and I'd like to tell you how I said hello to myself on that particular day. I was walking along with my head down on that Friday, not knowing what to do. I was wishing for something, but for what I didn't know. Something good, though. I was 12 that spring, and very glad that school would soon be out. I couldn't help noticing that there were some yellowish sticks and string lying in the weeds that grew at the far end of the schoolyard where I was walking. And when I stopped to pay attention and look a little closer, I noticed that they were kite sticks. And their centers were fastened together so that when I moved them around into a cross position like this, the string which was tied to the ends of each stick made the edges of a kite frame. Well, neat, I thought. Maybe I could finish this kite and fly it. But I had never really ever flown a kite before, much less make one from scratch. Oh, I had seen the boys in my neighborhood make kites, and a time or two one of them would let me hold the string and feel his kite tugging and flying up there in the sky. But I'd never made a kite. I had no brothers to teach me the art of kite making, and my father had been dead since I was 9. I wondered if I had a right to make a kite. It seemed like a boy's thing to do. You know, maybe I'd look like a fool. Maybe it wouldn't even go up for me, you know. A girl, here she would be running her legs off with a kite that wouldn't even fly. But, gee, you know, it really looked easy to make. I mean, all you had to do was add the paper, the sticks and the string already made the frame. It might be hard for a little kid to make, but I knew I could fix it up in no time. But then I thought, gee, isn't kite flying for little kids? I mean, kids younger than me. Maybe somebody would see me and think I was too old to be flying a kite, and they might laugh at me. And the thought of that made me feel kind of sick inside. But I guess something else was going on inside, because I was making the decision to do the kite. My fingers were itching to get started. You know, I like to cut and paste and make things, whether it's babyish or not. I decided to make the kite. So I got some string, more string, and some rags, and some big white paper, and some crayons and scissors. And now the crayons were for drawing the picture on the kite. I thought about all the kites I'd ever seen. You know, some of them had Batman or dragons or things like that on them, but those pictures weren't quite right for me. What I really wanted to put on my kite was the picture of a girl. You know, a pretty girl. But I wondered if my friends would laugh. I had never seen a kite with a picture of a girl on it before. Since nobody was around, I kind of shrugged and thought, what the heck, you know. So I drew a picture of a girl. She was real pretty, and she was sort of reaching out like this, and she had real long hair, my favorite kind in those days. It was brown, but I'll make it light here just so you can see it. Kind of long and glamorous and fluffy, and she was wearing a strapless blue evening gown. Very elegant. She looked like a teenager just ready for a date. And the drawing turned out to be so good that I forgot about my worries. And I got some rags, and I made a tail for my kite, the way I'd seen the boys do. And I took my kite back to the schoolyard to test it out. So I held it up as high as I could and started to run with it, just like I'd seen the boys do. And sure enough, easy as pie, the kite began to catch the wind and fly. And it just went right on up in the air. I could see my girl going higher and higher and higher, and it really made me feel good. The kite was flying. And it's funny, none of my friends ever showed up that afternoon. At first I was glad because it would have been embarrassing if my girl kite hadn't flown. But here it flew so well, and there was nobody but me to appreciate it. So I brought my kite down, put it up under my arm, and I took it to my best friend's house. I knew Mary Ellen would like my girl kite. Then I remembered, oh yeah, Mary Ellen had a brother, Iverson, and he teased us sometimes. And I could just hear him scoff something like, huh, who ever heard of a girl in an evening gown on a kite? Well, I thought about it, and then I thought, well, maybe Iverson won't be at home, and Mary Ellen and I could fly the kite in the park across the street from her house. So I went to Mary Ellen's, I knocked on the door, she opened it, I showed her the kite, she liked it. Right away she said, let's show it to Iverson. Well, my heart jumped. And I sort of tried to sound real cool about it. I said, oh, he'll probably think it's corny. Well, she didn't agree. She took the kite and started up the stairs to Iverson's room. She walked right in. Iverson was on the bed reading a book. She held up the kite and she said, look at the kite Jenifer made. Isn't that great? Well, I held my breath, you know, waiting for the big sneer. And Iverson, he put down the book and he looked at the kite and he kind of made a half smile and he said, yeah, that's really nice. So, the next thing I knew, Mary Ellen and I had the kite flying, this time in the park across the street from her house. And it was such a success. That kite just flew and flew. You know, it never once dipped or dived. It just kept on soaring, high and wide and free and beautiful. With crayons and paper and string, you can have your own set of wings. With your feet on the ground, you're a bird in flight. With your fist holding tight to the string of your kite. Oh, let's go fly a kite up to the highest height. Let's go fly a kite and send it soaring up through the atmosphere, up where the air is clear. Oh, let's go fly a kite. So when twilight came, Mary Ellen and I took the kite down, and we said our goodbyes to each other, and we each went home, you know. And I put the kite away somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, because I never flew it again after that day. You know, I guess there's a time for flying a kite and a time for putting it away. But the memory of that day stayed with me a long time. And I thought about it later. You know, the fun of that day made everything seem okay, even though I still wasn't all that sure about being a 12-year-old girl and liking boy-type things and coloring with crayons. Still in all, I thought, maybe the girl on the kite was me. You know, the girl I wanted to be. Pretty and grown up and high-flying. But on that day, she was about as far away from me as the kite in the air was from me on the ground. But you know, when I held the string, that stretching, tugging line that went from me on the ground to her in the sky, I felt like I'd made a connection to something I liked, something good. And that was when I decided that maybe that's what a rainbow connection is. Do you know this song? Sing it with me. Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La-di-da-da-di-da-do, la-da-di-da-da-da-da-do. When you keep on stargazing, something happens. What happens is you can see everything clearly. You can see everything just the way it is. When the sun don't shine on Monday, I don't wish that it was Sunday. I just smile and shrug my shoulders. That's the way it is. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is. Life is like a merry-go-round, sometimes up, sometimes down. I just smile and shrug my shoulders. That's the way it is. Sing along. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is. You know, when change comes, you might want to keep in mind about 3 things. The first one is to open your mind wide, I mean like spacious as the sky. And the second thing is to say hello to the people and the things right around you. And the third thing is you just got to go for it. And that's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is. When my mother tells me no, I don't tell her where to go. I just smile and shrug my shoulders. That's the way it is. Sing along. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is, by golly. That's the way it is. When I come home from a date and Mom gets mad and says I'm late, well, I just smile and shrug my shoulders. That's the way it is.